Okay, we should be live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing some Feb Regency themed reading sprints. So all of the co-hosts are here. Would y'all like to introduce your channels for those who may not know you?
Should I
Who wants
start?
to go first?
Yes, who wants to go first?
Well, I'm Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'll go then next. So I'm Tristan from Tristan and the Classics. Absolutely thrilled to be invited here. First time doing a reading sprint on YouTube.
And I'm Emma from Bookish Princess. This is so much fun. This will be such a fun way to kick off Feb Regency.
Yes, everyone's channel is linked down below. If you are not subscribed, please go subscribe to them because everyone is going to be putting out, I think, amazing Feb Regency content. So let us know in the comments what you'll be reading. You don't have to read for Feb Regency, but I think that's what we're doing. What are y'all reading?
I have Evelina. So
Ooh, the group
I'm
read.
about 150 pages in so far. And she's back in London, and it's pretty exciting. So I'm excited to get back into it.
Do you want to go, Tristan?
No, you go.
Okay. Everybody's so polite here. I have Evelina on hand in case I really just need something that's easy to jump right into. But I'm going to be trying my first poem of Feb Regency. So I'm going to try out The Midnight Court by Brian Merriman, which is actually an Irish poem, and it's actually written like maybe 15 years previous to the Regency period, but I know at least the Irish would be reading it during this time because it's a big deal. So I guess it sort of fits, but I'm just curious about it.
I'm reading, it's been a long time, The Vicar of Wakefield. And I've got a book with a magnificent cover. Look how pretty that is. No, someone just gave me a pile of books from 1908. So I was quite happy with that little set. And Vicar of Wakefield's in it. Of course, everyone back in the Regency would have read this book.
I'm going to be reading The Cinci by Percy Shelley. I'm trying to get my play out of the way because I never made it to a play last year. So I feel like if I start with a play, then at least I will have accomplished the challenges that I did not meet last year. So this is when I've started. It's kind of dense so far. So I think doing it on sprints will really help me.
Sprints can help you really get started on something new.
Mm-hmm. Tony has jumped live streams as the demon one was coming to an end. That's right. I saw that was live earlier. Hello.
Hello.
Dan, Tristan has just subscribed to you.
Oh, well, you see, it's the face, isn't it? Irresistible. Although no one else tells me that. I just believe that for myself. It's pure good. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, Dia just finished Evelina. Good for you.
Oh, wow.
Good job. Yeah.
Oh, right. It's just turned into a speed reading sprint.
Dan has a bunch of introductions from various editions of Jane Austen novels. That's pretty smart. Like, that's a pretty smart way to go in to read a bunch of the introductions before choosing which one you want to commit to.
Yeah.
Hi.
That's amazing. Yeah. Oh, hi, Vanessa.
Ooh, The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. I would also need to read that on sprints to get started.
Yeah. It's not just a sprint, is it? That one, that's a marathon.
Ooh, that's a marathon, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hi, Tori. She may be reading The Mysteries of Udolpho.
Very fun. I read that last year. Or like, it's funny, I had started it in October and got through like the first third, but then I feel like Feb Regency was the push that I needed to like get me through the rest of it.
And you liked it, didn't you?
In the end, I did. The first third I felt was a little slow moving, but then once it picked up, then I like couldn't put it down. Then I understood what like the Tilneys and Catherine Morland were talking about in Northanger Abbey.
As for The Assassin's Apprentice, great book. Not quite the Regency, but like you say, you know, I do like Hob.
Yeah, so we went with Wikipedia's generous definition. They started in 1795 and go to like 1830 something. I think the year Victoria took over. So, because yeah, technically the Regency is just when George the Fourth was regent for George the Third, and that was like about 10 years. But most people like extend it to a little bit deeper in the Georgian era.
Yeah.
Dia is reading Wild Irish Girl. What's that about, Dia?
I just finished Mariah Edgeworth's Absentee, which is so good. And so now I'm like in an Irish mood.
Tony is going to be reading Byron's Manfred because it is short. That's good. That's a good idea in sprints too, is to pick something you know you can finish. Then you feel really like you've achieved something.
Yeah. I like to start each month off with a short one. So at least I can say I've read a book. Wild Irish Girl that was just mentioned. Is that what's her name? Oh, it's gone. Is it Lady Susan? I think I'm not sure. A very famous Irish authoress back in that day wrote to defend the Irish culture. I'm sure Wild Irish Girl was that one of those, the most famous one. And it's her last
That
name.
rings a bell to me.
Yeah.
Is it
But
by Sydney Owenson?
Sorry?
Sydney Owenson? Lady Morgan?
Sydney Owenson?
Yeah, that's it. Lady Morgan. I knew it began with an M.
And then Jamie's reading The Time Traveler's Guide to Regency
Nice.
Britain. Did you just DNF that, Christy?
Yes.
Not to call you out. Not to call you out.
A little dry, but if somebody else is like, wow, this was 5 stars and rocked my world, I might consider going back to it. One of my subscribers recommended Revolution by Peter Ackroyd, so I started that one instead. So we'll see how that one goes.
Ackroyd's a great writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a good storyteller. I'm trying to see. Have we got... No, it's gone. I don't know where my books go. I swear there's like some book elf or demon that that keeps nicking them, because whenever I rearrange things, like about 20 go. There's one I've got called Decency and Disorder in Regency Britain. Fascinating book. Not brilliantly written, but so in depth. It gives you like a real sense of the people in the street, the Londoners, you know, the fishwives and the gin houses and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, why there's such decency and social standards. And yet at the same time, it's one of the most decadent periods coming off the back of the 17th century. It's a really fascinating read. Ben Wilson, I think his name is.
That sounds good.
Yeah. If you want a light read, entertaining, don't read it. But if you if you want something that gives you a lot of background to the, you know, mainly to the London mob, then yeah, he's really good to read.
Christy, is that part of Ackroyd's History of Britain?
Yes, I think so. Which I have like 3 volumes, and I thought it was a trilogy, but this is not. This is a different volume, so it must not be a trilogy of longer.
Well, do we want to get started?
Okay.
I know that Christy and I favor a long sprint, but how do y'all feel? Do y'all want to go with 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or do you want to go half an hour?
I'm fine either way.
Happy with
Right.
whatever.
I mean, longer sounds good if that's what works for you guys.
All right. We think in a longer sprint, you have more time to achieve something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why don't we say that we'll go from 15 to 45, 2:45? Well, that's our time, me and Emma's time. But
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that sounds great to me.
7:45 in the evening for me.
yes, it's
That's
late at
fine.
night. It's late at night for Tristan
Yeah, we have
And Tony.
and Tony.
It's morning for you, so we have morning, afternoon, and evening reading happening.
We've spanned
This is a
half the
truly
globe.
global sprint.
All right. Well, good luck, everybody. I hope that we managed to get further. I think we're all reading pretty long stuff, so we won't finish anything, but we can do it.
Fighting.
Yes, fighting.
Tally ho, everyone.
All right. How did we do?
Good. I think I got through 3 or 4 letters at least, making my way through volume 2.
Awesome.
Yes. What are you thinking of it so far?
I really like it. This is I have read this before, but it's long enough ago that I don't quite remember it. Like I remember some plot points, but not others. So it's kind of fun. It's like when I feel like I'm always like this with Agatha Christie too. It's like you reread it and you're like, which one was the murderer? Like how did this turn out? What about you guys?
I didn't realize you'd read it before.
It's been a long time.
I know Jenny's read it before.
Yeah, I read it a couple years ago. I thought it was quite fun.
It's very funny.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's got so many different elements to it too. I feel like the captain and Madame Duval, like just when I'm feeling like I can't take any more of them, we like have a new character. We shift focus, and it's like okay, good, a little break.
Yes.
Yeah. We've just met the Scottish, the mysterious Scottish gentleman in distress, and he's just written Evelina a letter explaining what his predicament is. So.
I love the writing from this age. There's like so many, what's the word? There's sort of loads of homely quips in all these books, which I find fascinating. It's like, wow, everyone seemed so wise back then. You had a phrase for everything.
Yeah, they speak so well too. Like it's just they use language so sort of lavishly. It makes me feel like the way we write and speak today is just so blunt. Like we don't use the words to their full kind of artistic merit. There was this one funny quotation where Evelina says something kind of beautiful but she's with the sort of lower class Mr. Smith, and he's like, well, I can't speak as well as you, but
I mean,
I think I made it 30. Oh, go on, Tristan.
No, you go, Jennifer. That's fine.
No, sorry. No, I know I'm on a lag, but I think I made it about 30 pages into my play. I had to stop every 2 minutes to highlight something, but it's dense.
Tell us, what did you highlight?
I highlighted, I think the big theme of this is religion, which is interesting because Percy Shelley was like famously an atheist, but he's very pro-Catholic in this play. This is set in the Italian Renaissance. He's very pro-Catholic and very anti-Protestant. And all of the villainous characters are kind of atheistic. All of the good characters are shown to be of faith. Really interesting.
How intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the opposite of today.
Yes.
What was Tristan going to say earlier?
Oh, I can't remember. That's like a goldfish.
That's the danger.
I have no idea. It was that important. Oh no, I didn't have a pen, so I always mark my books as like. Mind you, I'm not sure I'm going to mark this one, being as it's like over 100 years old. But there were some great phrases, and I can't find any of them.
I know. I feel the same way. I didn't have a pen, and I mark things, but I didn't. And I always like as I'm reading, I look at the page number, and I'm like, oh, I'll remember that. It was page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My mind is going. It was on the right somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see the paragraph that it was in.
Well, while you're looking, I'm reading The Midnight Court, like I said, on Hoopla, so I can't highlight either, which is driving me crazy. So,
Will Hoopla not let you? I know, like on Amazon and Kindle, you can highlight, like leave it as a note. But maybe Hoopla doesn't have that. I suppose.
I guess it. I guess
like
it does let you highlight. I just discovered you can. They won't let you copy and paste. So usually when I'm like picking out a quote on Hoopla, I will copy and paste it like by search. Yeah, it's complicated, but regardless, I'm enjoying it. It's good. I wonder if the highlights stay. Now I'm gonna use that now. Thank you.
I love doing that in Kindle books, and like my mom and I share the same Kindle account, so like she usually uses blue and I use pink, so you can see which quotations she highlighted and which I did. And if you ever go back and reread it, it's fascinating too. You can see it is so much easier to go back and find a quote from a Kindle, an ebook, than it is.
Yeah.
You can just Google the word and then it pops up.
And that's the best part about annotating when you reread it and you're like, why did that stick out to me? Why on earth would I have highlighted that?
Yes.
And then other things are like, oh, why didn't I highlight this?
And you leave comments in the margins and you read them and think, what a load of bilge. What
Yes.
on earth was I thinking?
I just reread my copy of Pascal's Pensée, which I had in college during, for college courses. And I was just like, I was like replying to myself in the margin.
I literally wrote in this, it's giving Electra. And now when I look back, I'll be like, what on earth does it's giving mean? Like 30 years from now, if I were to reread this, would I even know what it's giving means? That's so Gen Z, so like millennial slang. In 30 years, will I even remember that was slang?
I fortunately never really advanced past the 1900s, so
well, it's all coming back.
My vocabulary is pretty stuck. Although I did find a book in which I'd annotated twice, obviously reading it twice, and there was a big passage of something, and then a line underneath in a different color, which is clearly from another time I'd read it, with saying, please give up this line of thought. So clearly, I'm being honest, it was a good comment because the first bit of writing was nonsense. So I don't know what I was thinking there. Yeah. I love this. This is from the Vicar of Wakefield. This homely kind of phrase. He talks about how they've got money, so they always does he say that our cousins to the 40th remove all know where we live, so they all come to visit. And he says some are poorer than others, but he says if we're not very rich, we generally had very happy friends about us. And then says, for this remark will hold good through life, that the poorer the guest, the better pleased he ever is with being treated. I love things like that. It's like, although he does follow that up with anyone that annoyed him, he used to see them off and give them a riding coat, because if they were poor, they wouldn't come back, so they'd want to keep the coat. And if that was his troublesome guest, he'd give them something so they'd never come back again.
They don't want
But it's just that quote. It's lovely. Yeah.
I read Vicar of Wakefield. It's been quite a while, but there was a quotation I loved from it about the two daughters, the sisters, and how one had a more studious disposition and one had a more sort of gregarious, energetic disposition. But they would swap with each other whenever they felt like it. Like it was like, you couldn't really put them in those boxes. That was like generally what they were like. But then sometimes they'd switch it up. So.
Well, you have a good memory.
Yeah.
That's one of the few things I remember from that book, though. I feel like I need to reread it to remember more. I remember enjoying it.
I think you'll have no. Oh, good. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Emma, you're going to have no problem with your goal of remembering poetry and being able to recite it at the drop of a hat. Not going to be a problem for you. I'm calling it.
I need to buckle down to it, though. What were you going to say, Tristan?
Yes.
Oh, it was about those two girls. They're both very pretty. One is stunningly pretty. Although he says he doesn't care for outward form, so he wouldn't have mentioned it in his novel had not everyone else spoke about it. But he says that the one dazzles at a single blow, and the other champions by successful repetition in her features. I was like, man, this is so good.
Good. Oh, that's awesome.
The thing is, when you talk like this, I don't know if do you do this? Do you take these phrases and try using them elsewhere? I try to throw them in conversation. You get in real hot water at times. People think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, I wish I used more of them. I feel like I don't speak, try to speak it. I feel it's difficult. It's like not like your habitual way of speaking. I feel like when I'm writing, it's easier to try to write in a more eloquent way. But even then, yeah, you're right. You sometimes have to like rein yourself in because it's like, well, especially if you're writing for like just a popular audience, like in my full-time job, I do a lot of writing, and it's like just marketing writing. Sometimes I'm tempted to like throw in a nice word, but it's like you don't want to turn people off.
Marketing, forsooth, 'tis a merry circumstance. I had a friend, we only ever text messaged each other in Shakespearean language.
Oh, that's amazing.
It sounds so nerdy, but it was
it
used to be really funny. It used to be funny.
Tony is starting Manfred, which starts off very Faustian. Yes, Byron can write. That Byron can write. Penny DNF'd her book.
Oh, Prisoner of Zenda. Oh, that one to go to.
Right. Oh, 12 long pages of magic. Yeah. Those pages feel like a dictionary.
Yeah, 12 pages. So that's about 3 sentences, isn't it?
Yeah. Dan is going slow, highlighting key points. I know that's what slows you down whenever you're annotating or trying to make note.
It's more worthwhile, though.
It's true. I think I remember it if I note it. If I don't highlight it, then it's just gone.
Yeah.
Especially when I take the time to copy it out, because I have like some notebooks where I like to copy quotations out, and it's like those are the ones that then stay in your head.
Mm-hmm. I do the same. I have a quote journal and I love it. Dia read 25 pages. Go, Dia.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Kate says she loves reading about the Catholic and Protestant conflicts. It is very intriguing.
We just don't get that much today of that because religion's not got that hold it used to have, has it? It was, you can't even imagine how central it was to everything.
Although you still, I mean, I'm Catholic, and sometimes when I talk about my religion in my YouTube videos, I'll get like a stray comment or so that someone got angry about something that I said, or a fellow Christian who who says like Catholics aren't Christian or something like that. I know we might not share the same beliefs, but like.
Whenever I look up to go on my Only, I'm allowed one K-pop comment a live. My one K-pop comment is whenever I look up a group, like it'll tell you what their religion is, and it'll say some members are Christian, but some members are Catholic, as if it's two different things, which I think is very interesting.
I mean, it's surprising that they don't say like for the Christians that they're Baptist or they're like, the specific. Although some people are Christian who don't attend a church and don't have a denomination. So I guess that's why they don't. But yeah, it's like Catholic is actually Christian, to confirm.
Yes.
Going back to Peter, so.
I read a long time ago. Now, someone may jump on me about this. I'm sure the amount of denominations, I think it's something like 37,000. That's huge, isn't it?
Huge.
Wow.
I've always been fascinated with it because obviously, you know, I believe as well, but in the books, just for that reason, the books are like a massive religion's integral to it. So it gives you a lot of color in your background. I have got a bit of a theory about Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet regarding that. The two great houses, were they Protestantism and Catholicism?
Ooh.
That's interesting.
That's an interesting.
Yeah. Severing true love, you see. There's things that happen in Shakespeare's life that, yeah, religion caused a bit of a problem. And anyway, that's not the place here, is it? I'm sorry.
It's very interesting.
It is a dynamic. I just read Maria Edgeworth, The Absentee, and of course, Catholic versus Protestant in Ireland was huge. That wasn't necessarily a bone of contention for those characters, but that's like a huge thing.
And I'm reading Confessions of a Justified Sinner this month, and it's a guy who's Calvinist, so he thinks he's predestined to be saved, so he's stepping out and doing all this crazy stuff to see if that's really going to be true. And people hated it at the time, were like deeply offended that somebody would critique the church in such a way. So like definitely there were some conversations ongoing in the Regency period that I think are really interesting.
Yeah. This one thing I love about good books is the author will do that. They'll latch onto an idea and then explore it through a story. If you saw everything shake, then my cat's just jumped up. He's not supposed to be on the table, but he keeps doing it. They sort of explore something through a story. So, I mean, you can see their argument. If you're predestined, then why can't you do anything? Kind of thing. But I can see why that would really rattle a few a few feelings.
And that's what makes it hard, like to be raised in the church and to not have come into it from the outside. I don't know how to explain that to people, like about the being predestined, because people say like, oh, isn't everything predestined? It's like, God knows what will happen, but you have the choice. He just knows what choice you're going to make. So it's hard to explain that to people, but Calvinists literally believe like you are predestined, which is so interesting. Yeah.
It's fascinating. But it's all the way through these books. Like the book I'm reading now, of course, The Vicar of Wakefield. I'm guessing there's some church stuff in it. They've already had two vicars arguing over what real monogamy is. So it's actually a really funny bit of it. Just remembered, it made me smile. He believes that if you're married, you only marry once, and if the person you're married to dies, you do not remarry again. That's his stance, and he's wrote pamphlets on it. And he says that his tutor, his gravestone was like he was a faithful husband of one wife, it said on his gravestone. So the Vicar of Wakefield here, he's actually already had his gravestone cut, which says he was the husband of one wife who was a devoted and loyal wife. That's already on the gravestone, and he's got it hung over the fireplace as a reminder to himself and his wife.
Lou says you just convinced her to read it.
You convinced me to read it too.
Yes.
Oh, it's got that. I mean, it's a tiny bit pre-Regency, not by much, but it's got that very light, mocking air to it. But
it's definitely something they'd have read.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, is it Harriet and Emma?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Ooh.
Yeah, this book's it's quoted in a lot of books.
Well, do y'all want to sprint again?
Let's do it.
Do we want to go for the same amount of time, or do we want to go shorter? Up to y'all.
I'm
happy with what we did.
I'm good for the same amount.
All right, let's do it. So we can go from 5 after to 35. This really has me working on math brain. All
We've
right.
got poetry, we've got theology, we've got math.
Yeah, too much math. Me trying to read a clock. All right. Good luck, everyone.
Okie doke.
Ba-ding.
All right. How did we do?
Yeah, good. Thoroughly enjoying this.
How far are you in, Tristan? I never asked you last time, I don't think.
About 7, 8 chapters.
Wow.
I'm not a speedy reader. I just like to, but so many good quotes, just like ridiculously good. But I won't say those until everyone else gets to talk.
Yeah, I'm almost through volume 2. So, and I don't know if this is a spoiler or not for Evelina, but so I don't know if it doesn't seem like much of a spoiler, but there's a warning if anyone hasn't finished Evelina. But she actually makes it back to Berry Hill, and there's so many adventures when she leaves Berry Hill at the beginning. You're almost like, she's never gonna get back. It's not even much of a plot point. It's just like, oh my goodness, she's actually writing a letter from Berry Hill. It's such a cute name for a place too.
I will say that about Britain, much as it's got a lot of failings, the place names are fantastic.
It's true.
The names of everything are pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just really, really odd names. Piddle, the River Piddle. I love it.
I love the P.G. Woodhouse, the names he gives things, which are sometimes so absurd as to seem unrealistic, and yet they are realistic.
Yeah. I used to, it's not unusual, this isn't just me, but I think all kids the world over do it when they're going on holiday. Back before GPS, you used to look at the atlas, the map. But it used to be a thing because of Britain, the amount of names you could find, which were just great fun. And occasionally my dad would be like, okay, let's go and drive there. And it would be like a farmhouse with 2 chickens, and that'd be it. But it had a fantastic name.
I wish houses now had names. I mean, it's so fun in these letters, the way she always says the house that she's writing from, the Castle Howard or Berry Hill. And it's like, when we have text messages, it should say where we're texting from or something.
Yeah. I may even start doing that. That's great.
If the police ever have cause to look through Tristan's texts, they're going to be confused. Like, is a time traveler? Who is this man?
They're going to arrest me for suspicion of possessing illicit substances.
But on the other hand, you would be the ideal witness because you've written everything down, where you were.
Right. Annotated all.
Your research materials.
How are you getting on, Christy?
Good. Okay, I'm really enjoying this. And so you mentioned, and I remember hearing that there's a certain tone to Regency literature. It's often kind of sportive. And I definitely feel like this poem falls under that. It reminds me quite a bit of like Jonathan Swift, because it's talking about all the problems that Irish citizens have with the current king. And so it's really it's a bunch of people basically complaining to the fairy court because the fairy court is going to be more fair and more just. So I'm really enjoying it. It's quite funny.
Jennifer, how are you? How did you get on?
I finished the Chinchi, so I feel really good. It was much shorter than what I thought. And it was really good. It was very dramatic. It had incest. It had murder. It then had execution. And it had great conversation about religion. So what more could I have asked from it, really? But one character just went off on a speech when he's finally decided, like, we're going to have to kill this man who was abusing them. Like, it's a family taking revenge on their abuser. And then they get caught and they're executed for it. but people are very upset about it because it's viewed as a justified killing, that they should have killed him. But when one of the sons is finally like, let's do it, let's kill him, he goes off on some long tangent, and then he says, God can understand and pardon him, so why should I speak with man? So he just says, let's kill him and God will sort him out.
Just send him on to his maker for judgment.
Yes. His time's up. It was quite funny. I mean, he's an interesting character.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it cuts through a lot of the fluff, that attitude, doesn't it? I mean, gets things done.
And it's interesting to read a play. Like, sometimes it's hard for me to read plays because I feel like I'm just not getting the context I would get if I were watching it. But I don't think Shelley ever intended for this to be put on. So a lot of times the characters just outright say, I hate him. I'd like him to die or something, so that there's no like character exposition that you would witness on stage. He just lays it out super blunt.
Sounds quite in keeping with Shelley's character.
Yes.
He was pretty upfront himself.
Yes, he would.
And Byron.
Yeah, they were quite a set. I'm reading an Irish poet named Thomas More, who I just kind of discovered as I was trying to look through Regency poets. And apparently he was buddies with Byron, and he wanted to have Byron's biography, which was apparently very salacious, was in his keeping, and he was going to publish it. But Byron's family came in and like forcibly removed it from his custody because they were like, we are not publishing this. Byron should never have written this down. But so like there's this funny kind of juxtaposition of some people blame Thomas More for having lost the biography, and other people are like, yo, it wasn't his fault. He tried to publish it. But yeah, they were quite a set. My brother has this picture that he loves of, I'm not sure, would it have been Byron at Shelley's funeral or Shelley at Byron's funeral? But one of them is just, I mean, he must have been in distress, but like he's so outraged, over the top in distress at this funeral that it just looks very much in keeping with their characters.
I wonder how many public figures' heads would have rolled if Byron's memoirs came out. You knew a lot of them.
He was something. I kind of prefer him to Shelley. Shelley's kind of a hard time for me. Sometimes he's very serious. Everything has a meaning, and he's like trying to explain his arguments all the time. Sometimes Byron is like, I'm just here for a good time.
Yeah.
Let's laugh, let's have fun. And it's kind of surface level. And so sometimes I need that.
Yeah.
Kate read 10 pages and got a snack. That's smart. I should have gotten a snack.
I had to go grab one of my Scotch eggs because I was so hungry.
I know it's lunchtime for you. Scotch eggs, that's very on brand for Feb Regency.
Yes.
It was in one of your videos.
Yes. Last year I made Scotch eggs and I was like, I'm making those again. That was delicious.
They're not easy to make. Maybe
they're
you find them. They are. What's that?
They're not too bad. You just boil some eggs and then cover them in meat and just
breadcrumb it.
Oats. I use oats and then bake them. So.
Oh, you bake them, and now you see. I tried to deep fry them.
Oh,
the traditional way, yeah, and it all came apart.
Oh,
I had a deep fried boiled egg and bits. And I had to change the fryer.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to read about the recipes of that time, because I just got this Martha Lloyd cookbook that because Martha Lloyd was a friend of Jane Austen's and actually lived in the household with Jane and her sister and her mother. And she kept this little cookery interest book where she copied out all sorts of recipes. And there's actually even a poem in there that Jane Austen's mother wrote this recipe in the form of a poem of what you should bake for the vicar when he comes over. And it's so clever. Like, you can see where Jane Austen got her skill from, that like it came not just from her father but from her mother. That it's just a fun look into their household, but then also practical, because it's like, take 2 pounds of butter, this is how you make ink. Like, it's not just eating recipes, it's also like household tricks.
That's interesting.
That's amazing.
I have a little Jane Austen cookbook that's like Regency recipes, but I don't think confirmed that it's anything that Jane would have used. But like the most fancy recipe that you would have made, like when a bunch of people were coming over, maybe you were hosting a ball, you would have taken marzipan and stuck slivered almonds in it to make it look like a hedgehog.
Ooh,
and that would have been like the showstopper.
I one time made cookies. It wasn't almonds though. It was some other kind of. It was like a Christmas cookie recipe. But I love that. The almonds would be so perfect. One of the books. Which one was it? I think it was the Mariah Edgeworth, The Absentee. They're at a fancy dinner and they're talking about how they had one of those pyramids and it got knocked down accidentally, and like they were like trying to reconstruct it awkwardly. And it's so funny because in like Jane Austen Regency movies, you do often see those pretty little pyramids in the center of the table, but you don't think about what would have happened if they got like knocked over.
They were proper flamboyant, some of that stuff. I've seen some of the stuff made over here. I actually don't live too far from a Regency house. I don't live in it. It's a shame. But, you know, they'll sometimes do things which, like they had a show there. I didn't know if I was allowed to take a camera, like as in video record for YouTube, but they had the dress, basically, costume from the Regency period. And they had it there for 2 weeks. All set up in the rooms, and they've had cuisine as well. Wow, I mean, they are something else. What they say, like the length of time they would spend cooking, and the amount of pig's feet.
Yes.
It's loads because they used the jelly, didn't they, as the aspic?
Oh my gosh!
So,
yeah, this is that book, by the way. I see Dia asked. I found it on Amazon. So it's actually, I think it's in the collection of the Jane Austen house, but it's also at the Bodleian Library. But yeah, if you just search for it on Amazon, it'll pop up. They put it out in 2021. But I love it when they have the like actual scans, but then they also typed it up. So you can like things like the calves' feet and the jelly and fish sauce, bread sauce to make gravy or glaze, veal soup, veal cake, gooseberry cheese.
Oh, gooseberry. Good. Yeah. In a lot of stuff. Gooseberry wine.
One of the recipes was it had like, I think, bitter almonds that they were saying they later found out were poisonous.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Green almonds, isn't it? The Turks used to eat them, and then it became a fad over in the West. Yeah. And then they found it gives you arsenic. I remember reading that thinking that's nothing. You should see McDonald's.
It's like those jokes now that they say this would put a Victorian child into a coma or something like that. And it's like a keto or something. And people are like, do you not understand that in the 19th century, they cured like any of your ailments with cocaine and then with heroin? These kids are stronger than we are.
Oh, can you imagine? Yeah, little Timmy's doing all right, but I can't stop him from running. That's crazy. They actually in this. Sorry.
No, I was just saying so many people have found you through this live stream. I think this is the third person who said they've subscribed.
Hi, Roderick.
Sorry. Continue.
in this, the vicar, he rewards 2 of his children for being hospitable by giving them a lump of sugar each. You're talking about what puts kids back in Victorian Britain into a coma. Can you imagine 1 can of Coca-Cola would be like 5 years worth of their sugar because they just didn't have much.
And when you hear about them, like getting oranges in their stockings for Christmas, like because like an orange was such a rare find.
Yeah, well, that continued right up into the mid 20th century. My dad, that's what all he used to get was an orange. He thought, wow, that's lousy, isn't it?
We did too. We always were like, who wanted an orange? Now they make the chocolate oranges. I'm excited about chocolate oranges.
It's a bit better. Here's another little quote I got from here. The bit I just read on that second sprint, wow, there were like a ton of great phrases. But he's got these 2 beautiful daughters, and there's a squire who comes up who has a bit of a reputation, and he's saying a few things, but then he gets interrupted, and he decides, I don't need to carry on trying to make my girls see the importance of virtue. And I love this. This is just a great quote. He says, that virtue which requires to be ever guarded is scarce worth the sentinel. If you have to keep someone on track, you've got to trust that people will do the right thing. I love it. I was like, if this wasn't old, I would underline that. Oh, and I did manage to tear one of the pages while reading.
The paper was thin in the early 20th century. Very thin.
Yeah.
That's what I do in my day job. I'm an archivist, and we got in a whole bunch of late 19th, early 20th century books a couple of weeks ago. And I'm trying to like put our information in the back of the book with the most delicate touch of a pencil because their paper was so thin. I don't know what was going on, if people just decided to use the cheapest paper available, but it was very thin.
Or was that like seen as like refined to have, because I feel like in like a Jane Austen, they're like, oh, it was thin pressed paper that obviously came from like a fine house. Like the quality of the paper, they knew what kind of house it came from. I wonder, because it feels like it could be either way. When I was looking up for our letter writing challenge, how to write a Regency letter, because they didn't have envelopes, they would make the paper into an envelope, and like the way you had to fold it is just so fascinating to get it in the right shape. And then the way they wrote on every single last corner that wasn't on the outside was so clever.
Paper was really expensive for a very long time, I think. And that's why like books used to be a status symbol. Be like, oh, I went to somebody's house and they had books. Wow, that's incredible. And maybe early 20th century, it's turning over into not so much an expensive commodity, but something that everybody can have, which is great for us, but bad maybe.
This is why Sherlock. I'm just thinking, this is why Sherlock could track down all those people based on the paper that was written on, some clue.
Yeah, he wasn't clever. It's just only 4 people had access to paper. It's one of them.
Yeah.
And since he's got blood on his shoes, it's probably him. No, it's. I love the wax seal. Never got past that. I so wish we still did that. But
when I was writing my letter, I was thinking if I actually mailed this, it would be more expensive because of the wax seal. Like I could, you'd have to like put extra postage on it, and
it's fascinating that you're an archivist, Jennifer.
Oh, yes.
Like proper. I love that.
I love it. I work in rare books now, and I've worked in more modern stuff, and I prefer being with older material, definitely.
Wow. So what kind of books do you get?
I'll take pictures next week of all of our Regency. We do have a first edition Pride and Prejudice, which is like our pride and joy. The pride and joy of the department is because it was published in 2 volumes.
Uh-huh.
And it's really cute. It's like really small. And so it's one that you would have truly had in your pocket book. That's why we call it a pocket book. So we get in a lot of stuff. We have like from medieval manuscripts up to modern day, and our focus is typically on women writers. So we have the Brontes and everything, but we have a first edition Paradise Lost, and that's what I go back and see every day before I go about my day. I have to go see it and touch it.
Wow.
It's a great place.
Shrine.
Yes, it's a great place to be as a book lover.
Yeah, too right. Oh my days. That'd be a great monthly read thing, wouldn't it? Women in literature, but from far back.
Yes.
You know,
it's shocking to know, like, especially from this period, how much was written that was popular at the time. We don't think of most, especially women. Jane Austen is mainly the main one that we talk about, but we have Mariah Edgeworth, and I'm always shocked more people don't talk about her. She wrote quite a bit of nonfiction.
Yeah, I feel like Mariah Edgeworth is so beautiful. Like it's really been really fun in The Absentee. Her writing is just so amazing. And I think Jane Austen at one point wrote to one of her nieces saying that, because her niece was going to write as well. And she was like, from now on, I'm only going to read you, me, and Mariah Edgeworth. Those are the only 3 approved authors. But yeah, she was so, and Frances Burney and Tristan. I loved your video on other Regency authors other than Jane Austen. Like there was some on there I hadn't even heard of. I feel like there are so many that just don't really get talked about. You have to kind of dig to find them.
Yeah, but I had to dig to find some of them. I may do these videos. I haven't always read those authors, but you know, I find out as much as I can about them because I know people are looking for it. You know, but I've read some of them though. But you can go right back. Is it what was her name? Because history is like even bigger. It's my biggest thing, history. But I've lost her name. Queen of Navarre. Right back. 1300s. She writes a book very much like the Decameron. I really, really want to read that book because, you know, you're talking the age of the I said fractionally after the age of the troubadour, but that idea of courtly love is massive there. That doesn't change until you get to Shakespeare. That idea of what love is. This is why Romeo and Juliet was such a massive change, because he turned it into a tragedy. And the idea of what true love wasn't what Shakespeare said. It was different. It was courtly love. And then he goes and changes it all around. I mean, imagine that, writing a play so good that for the rest of history, the idea of romance is stuck on what you wrote.
It's synonymous with with the name of your book.
And every love story you really see, and every tragic love story on movies, they're practically all Romeo and Juliet. I just think it's amazing. But I'd love to go before that. I want to read that one from the Queen of Navarre because I want to get a better understanding of courtly love. I've read some stuff about it, but from a woman's hand would be much better.
And to say all that, I don't even think a female writer is on my TBR this month.
Well, it's good. Sometimes you read female writers, sometimes you read male writers. Then you get both perspectives.
That's true.
Yeah, I just started listening to an audiobook of Sir Walter Scott's Lady of the Lake, which is really good.
Wow.
Which has been really fun. Although the beginning starts with a hunt and like this beautiful stag, running, and I'm like, why are you hunting him? He seems so good. But of course, then they get to the lake, and I have to look up if it's connected at all with the Lady of Shalott, because someone said that, oh, that reminds me of the Lady of Shalott. And actually, in the Lady of the Lake, at one point they float across the lake in a shallot. Like the word shallot is in the poem, so it makes me wonder if Tennyson had read that and was, because Tennyson came after Scott. I'm almost certain, but yeah.
And the Lady of Shalott is sometimes like depicted as being the Lady of the Lake in Arthurian myth, like coming out of the lake.
Yeah.
Well, because Lancelot rides along, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Singing his tra-la-la. Yeah, that's worth checking up.
Yeah, although of course, well, at least so far, Lady of the Lake is not Scots, Sir Walter Scott's. It's just Scottish. Like James Fitzjames, I think, is the name of the knight on the hunt, rather than Arthur.
And there's a curious ensemble around that. So there's this great melting pot of history. The Scots and the Welsh and the English and the Cornish, although that's technically part of England, the Cornish view themselves as a separate people. They've all got the Arthurian legend. And those Arthurian legends are sort of rehashed multiple times over. And so when you get these stories like the Lady of the Lake, everything, because Excalibur and the Lady of the Lake as well, which is linked to Arthur. So they all blend and crisscross. It's really hard to pick it apart. It's one of the earliest historic sort of pedestals for the English people anyway. What's everyone reading for their factual one, non-fiction Regency?
I was originally going to read some of Byron's letters, but now I'm thinking I might read Mary Shelley has a collection. I think there are some letters in it, and it's also like a travel journal. So now I'm kind of tempted to read that instead.
That's good.
Have you read that?
Yes, her travels through like the Netherlands and Switzerland or something. Yes, it's good. I think she published that before Frankenstein.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
How about you, Christy?
I'm reading some of Samuel Johnson's Rambler essays, and also, those are, Emma read them last year, and I was like, I love a good essay. I have to check them out. So, and then the Peter Ackroyd book. If I can get to that, I will.
Yeah, of course.
How about you?
Oh, I've got, let's have a look here. I've got it down here. I can't remember who wrote it. Thomas Clarkson. Yeah. The History of the Rise, Progress, and Accomplishment of the Abolition of the Slave Trade.
Ooh.
Wow.
Very cool.
Because that was all through the Regency period.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in public society, other than various social issues going on. Not many people are aware of this, but it was like the hot topic for the British public was the abolition of slavery. They were tireless on this. Actually, primarily the evangelicals were behind all of that. But the public absolutely were pushing and pushing and pushing for the abolition of the slave trade. It was slowed down by those in power, rulership, because there's money involved. But the majority of people, they wanted the abolition of slavery. You know, you find it in Dickens, some of his characters, they're set in Bleak House, one of them, she's trying to help with the abolition of slavery abroad and doing good for others. And Dickens' issue with that is he was actually abolitionist himself, but his issue was there was so much attention put there when there were children starving in the streets of London and were being overlooked. And he had a bit of a problem. Only in the 21st century has he got flack for that. Because it's like he's anti-abolition. It's like, no, he really was for it. He contributes to it. But, you know, there was other issues as well that were being overlooked. But it's fascinating. This guy, Thomas Clarkson, was very much at the forefront of it. He was tireless for the abolitionists. So I've got a bit of a project going on with that. And then I want to read Frederick Douglass, go back to Solomon Northup's 12 Years a Slave. But I'm just I'm just starting with what the actual movements were doing. So I thought this was a good opportunity in Fed Regency.
Yeah, I think there was a comment back in the chat about Dido Bell. And was she like slightly before Regency? I know there's that famous, beautiful painting of her and her, well, I guess they were sort of like sisters. but there was I can't remember the name of it now. There was a kind of fun fashion program actually that I watched where it was on Amazon Prime. It was something about needle and I can't remember the name of it, but they basically took these beautiful British portraits from the past and tried to recreate an outfit from them while researching the individual. And one of the episodes was on Dido Bell, and they were trying to recreate her gown from that and looking, they visited her, I think the house where she lived, and we're talking about her life. So that was really, really neat.
That's fascinating. I love stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's some YouTube. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Have you seen some of the YouTube videos they're like they can take portraits and photos of the past and turn them into real characters? Oh my days! Some of that is just staggeringly good.
That's so cool.
Scone Palace. Oh, you
And
lived there.
of course, someone mentioning Sanditon. That Sanditon had an heiress of color, and it would have been fascinating if Jane Austen had finished that to know where exactly that story was going to go.
Yeah,
I loved where her direction was going as a novelist. I wish we had many more from her because I think it just would have gotten even better.
I know, it's so heartbreaking, and it's so tantalizing reading the Watsons and Sanditon. Like, I don't even reread them that often because you just get so invested in the story, and then it's over. And it's like, I can't take this.
That's like Dickens with The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
That one
it will always be a mystery because it didn't end.
I thought maybe he had like drafted that, like knew the end and left a note. And I was like, oh, that's okay. I'll read this half of it and then I'll discover who did it. No, he didn't leave anything. He didn't want anybody to know how it was going to end.
Just
No.
It's just sat there like, and it was so good. It was so gothic.
And it's like, that's another character I'd loved him to have lived longer because from Our Mutual Friend, his style changes. And you just wonder what he was about to get into because, he knew Wilkie Collins and he loved Wilkie Collins. And that move towards the mysterious, Dickens was sort of just getting on that. And I mean, you all know I love Dickens, so I think he's fab. But yeah, I've often thought, I wish he could have lived longer. I'm sure he did as well.
Too true.
But it's like I know it's not literature, but Elgar, the composer, he's got his Enigma Variations, his famous work, one of his famous pieces, and the reason it's called the Enigma Variations is because he wrote a piece. Every piece was about one of his closest friends. And the one, Nimrod, which is his famous one, I'm not going to try and hum it, but that was his best friend, Jaeger, whose name in Norwegian means hunter, hence Nimrod, the mighty hunter. But his wife said, where did you get the idea for the theme of it all? Where did you get the idea for that, the theme to develop all these pieces? And he said, it's so simple. He says, you've got to work it out. He says, I'm not telling you, you've got to work it out. And she kept badgering him and he never told her. Then he died. Hence why they're called the Enigma Variations, because no one knows actually where he got the idea from. And apparently he said, it's really obvious if you think about it, but no one will know. I love stuff like that.
It's fun when creators leave a little mystery behind. Like even Jane Austen herself, I feel like sometimes people get really angry with her like family for having kept her in obscurity, or like, that Cassandra burned some of her letters. And I don't think Jane would appreciate that. I feel like it was her own choice to a certain extent to keep her private life private. And she loved her family. And like, it's like, she's allowed to have she's allowed to be a mystery, she's allowed to leave it as a mystery.
The mystique's what makes being human so fascinating. around here, because I live in Wales. I'm from England, but I live in Wales. I live in the county of Pembrokeshire, which is known as Little England beyond Wales, because the English knights took over it, and it was the launching pad to all the Irish attacks. But because it was Little England beyond Wales, the Welsh were forever attacking it. So there are, in this county alone, there's like 40 castles. And whenever I go around the castles, all of the stories, they're all incomplete. And it just adds to the wonder as you're walking around there. You know, some of the castles are very small, but like you may have come across the famous Welsh princess who was renowned for her beauty, was Princess Nest or Nesta. Now, there's a castle not too far from here. I've been there. It's quite small, but she was there with her husband when it was attacked by another guy because he fancied her and wanted her for himself. And her husband had to escape down the toilet into this great gorge, right? I go there and I think, I wonder what actually happened. I sort of love not knowing, but hate not knowing at the same time.
Lou has said what we're all thinking.
Yes.
Blog the castles.
Oh, yeah.
Now, genuinely, would you like to see some castles?
Yes.
Because if you would,
Yeah,
I'll get a camera and go around a few. There's actually one here. When the Normans came over, they built Motte and Baileys. So it's like the big mound and then a palisade, sort of a flat area with all the houses in, and a palisade round. Now, most of those, you can't see the outline. You see that all castles have got a lump in the middle. That's the old motte. But other than that, you don't really ever get an idea. And I was wandering through a pretty isolated village and came across one which is in like pristine condition. And I've been all over Britain looking at these things. I've never seen one as good as that. So it probably won't look interesting on camera, though. It's just grass.
Oh no, it'll be fun to watch.
Yes.
My family loves Time Team, so grass is fascinating and dirt.
Especially with a tour guide like you who actually knows about it.
Look at this field, everyone.
I mean, everyone says, yes, do it.
Okay.
Castle
okay.
vlogs. Make
Okay.
castle videos.
I could go to some Regency buildings as well, of course. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
There's
See
an
if we can get
idea.
that together. Well done, everybody. I really do wish we could. I would like to do a American classics month, because America just took it to a new level. I think of the 20th century classic writers. I think the Americans like started taking over. You know, the 19th century is going to belong to the British and the French. Well, the Europeans, let's be fair, because you got the Russians and all, they were brilliant. But the 20th century, America really came into its own. The only person, going back to 19th, I don't know how you all like him, but Fenimore Cooper.
I like him.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
wordy.
Very. Could you recommend a book for me of his? Because I read Last of the Mohicans. And
That's the one I was going to recommend.
oh, was
Same.
it?
Yeah, I like Last of the Mohicans. I know it's got its issues.
Whatever you do, don't go and watch my classics under 5 minutes. early YouTube days, I did classics under 5 minutes, and it was sort of a spoof. It was like bad reviews of books, and Last of the Mohicans is in it. But yeah, I'm trying to think of who else what else does he write? Because that's part of a series, isn't it? The Last of the
Yes, he
Mohicans.
has like a lot of nature set books. He has one about the American Revolution that's not Last of the Mohicans that was quite good, but I don't remember the name of it.
Oh.
I feel like, Emma, you would like him if you've never tried him.
I've not read much by him. Yeah. So
There's like a dreamy quality to his nature writing.
Mhm.
I think
He
you
is
would like
good at landscapes,
Mhm.
but what he does with a bear in Last of the Mohicans. I did not see that coming. What he did with the bear, if you remember it.
Yeah,
I
sadly.
don't know if I've ever read that one.
Oh, yeah, it's worth reading just for that bit. Yeah. God.
Well, if you do an American classics readathon, we'll all be joining along.
Oh yeah, we'll do this again. It'd be great.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
And I'm not well read in American classics at all. Like I just don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just thematically, like I have not gotten on with a lot of American classics. So I just always go to Europe.
I know, yeah. I feel like I have American writers and poets I love, like Emily Dickinson and Mark Twain, and like I definitely have some.
Flannery.
Flannery
yeah.
O'Connor.
I
to
love
get that
Moby
one in,
Dick.
Christy.
That's the hill I'll die on.
Moby Dick.
That's the hill I'll die on. I love Moby Dick.
Yes. Yes. That is wow. That is some book. But they didn't like it in its day, did they? Like most great books. Steinbeck. I think Steinbeck's fantastic.
Oh, he is. That's
as a
true.
writer. Not many storytellers like that. And then you've got Sinclair, a bit different, but interesting. Yeah. But the thing is, like you say, the Regency is actually full of authors, like so many authors. It's just we only know Jane Austen normally.
Yeah.
And if they want to make some really good, like blockbuster films, like you say, Mariah Edgeworth, or Anne Radcliffe, pick their books up. They're fantastic.
Yeah. That would be really fun. I feel like there's a lot they could do with them. Yeah, or even like Evelina. Like Evelina's total soap opera nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just have to talk enough about these books to make them so popular that some Hollywood screenwriter will take up the cause.
Pick it up. Well, maybe we need to start a foundation for bringing back Mariah Edgeworth, because just like they did with Trollope, the Trollope Society. People had forgotten about Trollope, and yet he's a brilliant writer. So the Trollope Society went to work on making his books.
Yeah, I wonder if there is a Mariah Edgeworth Society. Should Google it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they should be more well known. When we were first talking about this readathon, I was like Googling, okay, Regency era authors, and like Google gives you a handy little their Google approved list at the top, and it was Jane Austen and all these modern authors who write Regency themed, and I was like, Google, this doesn't count. That's not Regency era literature.
Google does not know about Regency era literature.
Yeah, it's like Jane Austen, Georgette Eyre.
Yes. I love Georgette Eyre. She's not Regency, like she's style written in the modern day.
The real scandal was Bridgerton.
Yes, I started to say most of the time when you search it, it comes up Bridgerton for me across the board, just Regency romance.
Mm-hmm.
According to Tony, there is a Mariah Edgeworth Society.
Oh, well done, Tony.
I'll look into that.
Do you know what? I bet you could easily get an interview with whoever runs that. Because I bet they don't get too many contacts, You don't meet anyone who says, what you've been reading. Oh, Mariah Edgeworth. I don't think I've ever had someone say that. Sorry, Christy?
Kate does that a lot. I was just gonna say that's probably so true. Kate does that a lot for like Victorian everything. Everything. She'll find interesting people to interview.
Yeah, I've watched some of her. What was that interview she did? It was fascinating. See, memory. I blame it on having children. I used to remember everything. Now I can't. I go around the house talking in like half sentences. Yeah. Oh, it's fab.
We don't believe it. You were just quoting from books, an hour ago.
Only because I just read it and had it in front of me. The page was open. Would love it. I'm being offered a drink.
Well, I know that it's pretty late for Tristan and it's past
Yeah.
Christy's lunch. Do we want to call it a day?
I think, yeah, we might need to wrap it up. This has been so much fun, though.
Yes.
It's been
Yes.
amazing.
Hmm.
This was such
Thank
a good
you,
idea.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, and thanks for coming. If you all have been in the chat,
Yeah.
I know the chat has been very active, so that was really exciting.
This is such a fun way to kick off Feb Regency. It's so fun to hear what everybody's reading and what they're interested in. And
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll definitely be joining any ones you do again, because this is actually just what I needed to kickstart me for Feb Regency.
Yes.
With
I
things
think-
going on, you get so distracted, but just being able to sit down and read.
Mhm.
That's been
Especially
phenomenal.
with the classic, trying to get it takes a long time for my brain to get into classic mode. So a sprint like that forces me to read it for a certain amount of time, that really helps me get my brain into gear for harder language.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does need focus.
Yes.
The problem is when you've got steeped in it, it's really disappointing coming out of that world.
Yes.
maybe
That
we
was
need
so
longer
cool.
sprints, an hour long.
Hour-long
Yes.
sprints.
Join us for a
This
month
This
long.
becomes a read with me.
Super sprints.
Maybe we should organize some kind of retreat.
Yes.
At one of the Regency era houses. There we go. That's really
Oh,
awesome.
can you imagine? They do rent them out. Like to stay over.
Do it at
I'll stay
Pembroke
in one once.
Castle. We can all come.
Oh my gosh.
Read
A
our-
Feb Regency meetup.
Yes.
Aw.
Wouldn't that be the best? There is actually a castle in this county which is complete and strangely has a cottage in it. But you can literally, because most castles obviously you can't stay in them, but that one you literally can rent it for a holiday and live in it. It's quite small.
Wow.
And strangely enough, it's very literary, because the first writer of histories for the Welsh people was a guy called Geraldus Cambriensis meaning from Wales. And he was born in that castle, and you can still go and stay there.
Wow.
Yeah. And Dylan Thomas didn't live far from here either. So the town that he wrote Undermilk Wood about got his inspiration. You can still see all the buildings, and there's still shops, right there. Even the pubs, they're all the ones that he wrote about in Undermilk Wood. That's quite cool as well. But you go into England, it's all been torn down. So, oh, brilliant. Oh, it's been great, guys.
Yes, thanks, y'all. And please remember to join us for our discussion of Evelina. That's February 25th. I will link to all the information down below. I'll give you Emma's email address so that you can join us on our Zoom discussion of that. But thanks again for coming. Bye, everyone.